Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we really take your chosen sources and dig into what makes them tick.
Get right to the core, yeah.
Exactly. And today, you've brought us an excerpt from YouTube. It's an interview with Uru Landuchi from the Nur para Todos channel, titled Espiritualidad en la Era Digital.
That's the one. It's quite a wide-ranging chat.
It really seems to be. So our mission today is to explore how our digital lives are sort of crashing into alternative worldviews.
Right. Things like the flat earth discussion that comes up.
Yeah, and also the tech side, AI, crypto, and these bigger, almost spiritual questions that pop up.
It's about understanding the landscape, really, the challenges, the opportunities.
For sure. And we should probably say up front, some of the views expressed by Landuchi are, let's say, unconventional.
Definitely outside the mainstream.
Right. So our goal isn't to agree or disagree, but just to understand the ideas presented in the source itself.
Absolutely. It's about mapping out the thinking in this specific conversation. It's quite a journey he lays out.
Okay, so let's start with Uru Landuchi himself. What's his background? He mentions spending 25 years behind a computer.
Yeah, a long time. And he feels that experience really helps him now with, creating all his content.
Makes sense. And he's busy, got congresses coming up in Chile, Lega Chile, April 25th, 26th.
That's right. Religaccio.com has the info. And then he's off to Uruguay, Casa Vilaro, early May.
So very active. And he's putting out more content, too. Streaming daily.
Almost daily, yeah. It's a definite increase from before. And interestingly, YouTube is now his main income source.
Wow. Alongside other work, you mean?
Yeah, alongside more traditional stuff. But he really seems to thrive on that live interaction with his audience.
That direct connection.
Exactly. And you have to think, spending that much time in the digital world probably, shapes how he sees all this stuff.
Good point. He's not just looking from the outside.
Not at all. He understands the mechanics. And the YouTube income thing, well, that says a lot about how media is changing too, doesn't it?
Yeah, individual creators becoming their own broadcasters. So he calls himself a streaming machine because of all the information.
Right, this constant flow. He mentions a fake news segment he does on Canal 5, specifically about space stuff.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like, those daily headlines, new theory challenges Einstein, or meteorite threat, or solar flares, all that sensational stuff.
Okay. The clickbaity things.
Pretty much. But his point is the info is constant, but it's our interpretation that keeps changing.
That's interesting. So information overload, but the key is how we filter it, how we understand it.
Precisely. It's not just having the data, it's the analysis, the context. Think about how different news sites spin the same story.
True. You really need critical thinking skills more than ever.
Definitely. Media literacy is crucial.
You'd think all that streaming would lead to burnout, wouldn't you?
You would. But he says it actually gives him energy, a purpose. His para que me levanta la mañana, his reason for getting up.
Huh. So the interaction fuels him.
Yeah, the feedback, the messages, meeting people who say his info helped them, that seems really important.
He did mention, though, that when he first got into the flat earth perspective, he got a lot of pushback.
Oh, yeah. Significant negative reactions. He said it forced him to really dig deep, be convinced himself, and properly understand the, standard Copernican view first.
So he had to do his homework on both sides.
Seems like it. It shows a certain conviction, right, to stick with unconventional ideas under fire. And the positive feedback now probably reinforces that.
Okay, so now things get broader. He talks about the current state of things, these big tech shifts, Agenda 2030. He calls that socio-communist.
Yeah, and contrasts it with the fourth industrial revolution, which he frames as more capitalist, technocratic.
And he brings in names like Elon Musk, Neuralink, AI, UBI.
And Yuval Noah Harari talking about, hackable humans, surveillance, the end of the soul.
Yeah.
Really big picture stuff.
Wow. And he sees connections between tech like AI, 5G, smart homes, and things like social credit, carbon footprints, job losses too.
Exactly. He's linking all these different threads, and this idea comes up that we all need to reinvent ourselves.
Right, because things are changing so fast. Use radio adapting to streaming as an example.
Yeah, a necessary evolution, he calls it.
What strikes you about him weaving all that together? Tech, society, control.
It's the scope, really. He's not just looking at AI in isolation or CBDCs, but how they might all interact, potentially reshaping everything.
And bringing in Musk and Harari. These are voices people recognize discussing these very futures.
Right. It grounds the discussion. It makes you think about the societal impact beyond just the gadgets.
And of course, if you're talking online, especially with unconventional views, You hit the censorship issue.
Always.
Yeah.
He talks about the challenges on platforms like YouTube, developing internal codes, alternative language.
Like a workaround.
Yeah, to avoid triggering the filters. He compares the platform rules to being in someone else's house. You follow their rules.
That's a clever analogy.
And he points out that these codes must work to some extent because the platforms keep having to change their algorithms to catch them. It's like a constant game.
The cat and mouse thing, yeah. Between expression and control.
Absolutely. It shows these platforms aren't neutral. They have rules, algorithms that shape what we see.
Then he talks about the future of control and resistance. He uses the taxi industry as an example. Losing power because of automation, like self-driving cars.
Yeah, Tesla's in the lake, how automation shifts power dynamics.
And then CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. He seems concerned about those.
Very. Especially the programmability aspect, the potential to link them to social credit, carbon footprint, that sort of thing.
Contrasting it with crypto, which is more decentralized.
Right. And he even uses this odd example, pink football boots dominating the market, to show how the system can manage trends and resources.
Huh. That's specific.
It is, but it illustrates a point about subtle influence. And he mentions how hard it's becoming for people to just use cash to operate outside the main system.
So painting a picture of potentially less financial freedom, more tracking.
That seems to be the concern, yeah. Especially if different control mechanisms merge.
Which leads him to talk about dystopian scenarios and even social engineering through films.
Yeah, that's a provocative idea, suggesting movies can act like trial balloons, testing public reaction to future possibilities.
He mentioned a pandemic film in relation to 2020.
He did, and he describes this potential ultimate dystopia. Surveillance, 15-minute cities, smart homes, access tied to your digital footprint, and social credit score.
This is pretty bleak. Does he see any resistance?
He mentions things like people destroying traffic blocks in England, but emphasizes that these systems tend to creep in gradually over generations.
So slow implementation makes it harder to fight.
Potentially. He also points to increased surveillance elsewhere, China, Australia, limiting social media.
And he brings it home too, mentioning discussions in Argentina about databases, a new tax agency, linking it all back to potential CBDC integration.
Right. Connecting local developments to these global trends. He even mentions a prediction about AI eventually handling legal stuff, like traffic accidents or case analysis.
Like YouTube's content review, but for the justice system.
That's the parallel he draws.
This idea of films as social engineering. What do you think? Is it deliberate programming or just exploring what-ifs?
Well, it's hard to say definitively, isn't it? It could be creatives exploring ideas that then just become more normalized because they're out there in the culture, or maybe there's more to it.
But his point is to watch for patterns, connect the dots between media and reality.
Yeah, engage more critically with the stories we're told.
But it's not all doom and gloom. He does talk about alternatives, finding ways to maintain agency.
Definitely. He mentions that old saying, echan la ley y la trampa, for every rule, there's a loophole, basically. Human ingenuity finds a way.
And gives examples like people moving out to the country or using local exchange systems like the G1.
Right, practical ways people are trying to live differently. And also just choosing to live with less materially as a form of resistance.
Opting out of the consumer cycle to some degree.
Exactly. It shows people actively seeking autonomy when they feel constrained by the dominant system.
Okay, let's zoom in on AI specifically.
Yeah.
His take seems maybe less breathless than some. He compares it to Word's old summarize feature.
Yeah, quite grounded. He notes all the AI-generated content on YouTube now, calls it insufferable.
I can sympathize with that sometimes.
Me too. His main point seems to be finding balance. Use tech to gain time for personal growth. Don't let it make you reliant and stupider, as he puts it.
So use it as a tool. Don't become the tool.
Pretty much. He gives the open source ecology project 3D printed farm systems as a positive example. Tech used for clear benefit.
That's a useful perspective amidst all the hype and fear around AI. It's about how we use it.
Right. It demystifies it a bit,
Yeah.
puts it in a longer historical context of tools we've developed.
Then the conversation goes broader again. Utopias, resistance, but also personal transformation.
Yeah, looking for solutions beyond just fighting the old way. He suggests that real change might be more internal, creating your own system, your own reality almost.
Self-knowledge, finding your calling, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Understanding yourself, your purpose. He uses the Neo in the Matrix analogy. You can engage with the system, but from a different level of awareness.
Operate within it, but not be of it entirely.
Something like that. He emphasizes finding your vocation, your purpose, shares his own shift towards valuing nature more.
And notes there are new ways, new tools to connect with what you want, beyond the old city life model.
It's a call for inner resilience, personal agency, really, no matter what's happening externally.
How does that land with you, this focus on the internal amidst big external shifts?
I think it's fundamental. External circumstances change, but that inner core, that sense of self and purpose, that's what provides stability. The Neo analogy is great navigating the system without being consumed by it.
Which leads nicely into the nature of reality itself. He brings up simulation theory.
But he's kind of critical of it, suggests it might be a distraction.
Yeah, like a fantasy, distracting from a more obvious spiritual reality. He points to nature a seed versus a computer, saying nature has this inherent complexity, this intelligence.
Questioning if tech is the right lens to view everything through.
Right. He thinks the tech elite tend to frame everything technologically. He mentions Descartes' evil genius as an older version of the idea.
And he suggests maybe the gaps in science, dark energy, dark matter, push people towards simulation theory because ground models can't explain everything.
Could be. But he questions reducing everything to computing. He offers other simulations, like just recalling a sad memory. That's a mental simulation, right?
Or dreams, meditation, experiences with plant medicine, alternative states.
And then he contrasts all that with a more spiritual view. Souls descending, incarnating for a material experience.
So a real clash of worldviews there. Materialistic tech explanations versus something more soul-based.
Yeah. He's asking, is our current tech framework really enough to understand reality? Or are there deeper layers?
That emphasis on nature's intelligence is powerful. There's complexity there we definitely haven't replicated.
And this naturally brings up the huge questions. Why are we here? Free will.
Big ones. He touches on possibilities, tests, evolution, just the experience itself.
Uses that film, Melinda and Melinda, to show how perspective shapes everything.
Right. And the Buddhist idea, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Our interpretation is the choice.
That's a powerful distinction.
It really is. He also brings in some esoteric ideas, the demiurge, Satan, a Saturn time, ruler of the material world.
Allegorical interpretations, yeah. And he stresses being a creator in your life. That if you're not creating, you might feel lost.
Yeah, the importance of active expression and needing internal guidance, astrology, meditation, self-reflection to find your way.
Mentions the fallen angel idea, too, remembering your purpose. What stands out most for you in that section?
The perspective point, definitely. How much our interpretation colors our experience. And the creator idea that active engagement is key to meaning.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, he talks about judging. Calls it a divine act. But then adds a big caution.
Right. It's how we judge that matters. Misjudgment can harm us, even affect our health, he suggests.
So maybe not judging is self-protection if you don't have the full picture.
That seems to be the idea. He distinguishes between opinion, criticism, and real judgment, and warns about judging people close to us without understanding their situation.
Makes sense. Avoids conflict, maybe even stress-related illness. He talks about words being like a sword.
Yeah, the power of language to create or destroy, and finding that balance between being positive but still acknowledging harm feelings.
Not just pretending everything's fine.
Exactly, and distinguishing between memory and just like wallowing in the past. He uses losing a pet as an example.
Tough to stay present, though, isn't it?
Very. He talks about needing emotional protection from others' judgments, too, realizing their reactions are often about them.
Right. Don't take it personally.
Especially with strangers. With people you know, he pushes for empathy over judgment.
And he brings it back to creativity, that unique human ability for art, which maybe the system undervalues.
Yeah. And the word demiurge itself meaning artisan, maker. So we're each the demiurge of our own reality.
Shaping it through how we see things, like the guitar example art or firewood, depending on perspective and need.
That ability to transform meaning seems key to him. It's a fundamental human skill.
There's a lot there on judgment and resilience. What's the core takeaway?
I think it's that wisdom in judgment. Approach it carefully with empathy, knowing your view is limited. And that idea of being the demiurge of your reality, you have agency in how you perceive and shape your world.
Got it. Okay, finally, he circles back to his upcoming events, The Chile Congress, Relegado Chile.
Yep, April 26th, 27th in Santiago. Sounds multidisciplinary speakers covering spirituality, reality, sacred geometry, not just flat earth basics.
Roberto Nieto Ortega, Fernando Ferreira, Landucci himself, Jordi Varela, Martin Rodriguez. Quite a lineup on RelayRayChile.com.
And then the Uruguay event, Casa Villaro, May 3rd. More informal, discussion-based, with him, Donnie Marquez, Martin Jordi.
Touching on similar themes, probably.
Seems likely. And his future plans sound flexible. Back to Europe, end of May, maybe a new podcast project in Ibiza.
With Martin Rodriguez and Pachamama Flat.
Potentially. But his main thing is still creating content, the live streams, connecting with the audience. He appreciates spaces like the Interviewer's Show for open discussion.
It's interesting how these events seem to be broadening out, tackling bigger, interconnected ideas.
Yeah, suggests a move towards more holistic ways of looking at these complex questions about reality.
So wrapping up this deep dive, wow, we covered a lot of ground sparked by that Uru Landuchi interview.
We really did. Digital life, alternative views, tech shifts, deep philosophical questions.
It's a complex mix, and again, the point isn't about endorsing any specific view, but about understanding the perspectives out there, prompting our own thinking.
Absolutely. It's about engaging with the ideas critically.
So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is about balance.
Yeah.
How do you personally navigate that line between engaging with the sled of external information, the societal shifts, and cultivating your own internal landscape, your beliefs, your sense of meaning?
That's the core question, isn't it? How do you use these digital tools, stay informed, but also stay grounded in your own search for purpose? It's an ongoing process. Hopefully this discussion offered some useful things to consider on that journey.